Here it is, a groove slightly transformed. Just a bit of a break from the
Well, the Young Turks. You know what kind of show we have for you today? No, not the normal adjectives, fun, exciting, zany, etc. No, we've got a powerhouse of a show for you today. Now, you can't knock this show over with a bulldozer today. You just, boom, run into a brick wall, steamroller gets knocked over. That's what's happening today. Later in the program, Ben Mankiewicz joins us. Sure. Also, Dylan Radigan. Also, Alan Grayson. Powerhouse. Okay. Well, I don't know. Who else do you want me to bring in here? Who? Anna? She's coming as well. Okay, everybody calm down. So, now, we've got a lot of important issues. Of course, we have the oil spill. I got some great tidbits on that. Of course, we have McChrystal. Oh, Fox News. Oh, Fox News. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. But you know what the theme of McChrystal today is? The media and how they handle it. There's something I missed there that the Daily Show picked up on and Jason Lincoln's at Huffington Post picked up on. I should have picked up on it earlier, but I'm going to tell you about it. I think it's a great point about the media in America. All right, in a little bit. But you know what? Let's start with what's actually the largest story of today, whether people realize it or not. Right now, as we speak, they are deliberating in conference between the House and the Senate for what will be the final version of financial reform. And it is very volatile. It's going up and down like a roller coaster. There's some good news, there's some bad news. The good news is, it's shocking, but Blanche Lincoln's derivatives reform is still in the bill. It's hung in there all the way to the end. That's the one where Goldman Sachs wrote a report internally saying, oh, please, their derivatives amendment. That's not going to last. Don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. They didn't add the we'll take care of that part, but that, you could read it between the lines. But their assessment was that it would be gone. That was the assessment of everybody because it's important. It's a real piece of reform. I mean, if that makes it all the way to the end, I might flip on the whole bill and say, oh, wait. No, it's not a joke. Hey, all of a sudden, we got something real done there, okay? Now, that's the good news. The bad news is manyfold. The White House took out the part that would help shareholders decide who runs their companies. Barney Frank helped kill the Al Franken amendment that would improve and reform the rating agencies. There's Tim Johnson just introduced something that I'm going to tell you about in a second that's also disastrous. I mean, it gets worse by the minute, right? But at least Lincoln's is still in there, and they're having that discussion. And by the way, who's leading the charge on killing the derivatives amendment? Barney Frank and the House. I was given to understand that Barney Frank was a real progressive. Look, it's not even Barney Frank's fault, okay? It's not any of their faults. The system is broken. The reason that Barney Frank is pushing for that is because he gets paid a ton of money from these banking interests, but more importantly, the people voting in his committee do. And so he's got to answer to his committee, and they're all saying, no, our guys told us, we need that money to get reelected, and the money's coming from the banks. Did you know that 70% of donations to politicians for their campaigns comes from corporations? 70%, okay? So they're all, why is the House, which is supposed to be more progressive than the Senate, why are they covering the Senate's, covering Wall Street's ass? And remember, the excuse that Democrats always use, what can we do? The Senate, the goddamn Senate, we can't get 60 votes, right? Except they got the votes they needed in the Senate. The Senate is actually more progressive on this, on most of the issues, but not on all. And now it's the House holding it up. Because as Dick Durbin told you, frankly, they own the place. The banks own the place. So now they got Barney Frank doing their bidding. But look, there's people fighting back, and Huffington Post did a great job. Big, fat picture of Barney Frank in the front, right in the middle, saying, fighting, against reform. Good, shame them. Name names, make them famous, right? So I love that. So now here's something, I'll get to Tim Johnson in a second and the latest developments, but here's something that I found shocking today. We had a fascinating moment today. It hasn't happened in a long, long time. So I'm looking to see what the latest is with this financial reform package. It's being debated as we speak. on Thursday, and I'm looking online and I can't see any updates, and I got to do the show and I got to find out what's the news. I mean, what's the state of things? And I go all those different sites, I can't find anything. And you know what I did? I turned on television. We've got news on television. How did that happen? So what was it? Now you're gonna look. You know what it was? It was the Dale and Radigan show. Because I knew he was going to cover it, and I knew he was going to have the updates, and he did. Now, as I tell you that, look, you're going to say, oh, I could see it now. Oh, you've been on Radigan's show 100 times. He guest hosts the show, da-da-da. And I'm almost afraid to tell you because it seems like, oh, I'm biased in his favor. But why am I biased in his favor? Because the guy's actually covering the news, okay? And I've talked to you, I agree with him on 98% of the issues, and I don't know what the other 2% are. So, and I knew he was going to be the one guy who covered it, and he did. And I got the updates from there. Funny enough, out of all this, I think that's the biggest news story. Because I literally cannot remember the last time I turned on television for actual news. And it happened today. Anything is possible. Hope. Okay. So now, speaking of Radigan, okay, again, I'm afraid I'm going to be accused of bias, but I just agree with the guy. He had an excellent article today on walking away from your mortgages. You know, what the bankers tell you is, if your house is underwater, meaning you owe more on the house than it's worth, you have a moral obligation to keep paying that bill. What I've told you and what Radigan says in the article and said before is that's laughable. Like you don't have any moral obligation. You know how many times rich people walk away from their contracts? Oh, contract, you can't violate a contract. Do you know how many times corporate America walks away from their contracts? Do you know how many times banks walk away from their contracts? If they don't like the contracts and they think, hey, I'm going to pay less by walking away from it, they do it in a second. And in the article, and that's why I liked it, and we sent it out on Twitter, he shows you, he gives you the links, he gives you the examples. Here's rich guy number 1 that walked away from an enormous contract. Rich guy number 2, corporation number 3, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So look, he has this example. It's a little extreme, but it actually is happening all across the country. Let's say that you bought your house for $500,000 and you got about a $500,000 mortgage left on your house, but its price dropped all the way down to $300,000. It's happened. It's all across the country. So does it make sense to keep paying $500,000, you know, through the mortgage payments for a $300,000 house? No, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even remotely make sense. Now, you have to understand something. If you threaten to walk away from that mortgage, they'll probably negotiate with you. You know why? The banks don't want you to walk away from it. Because if you walk away from it, then they have to recognize the loss. Then they have to say, oh, yeah, you know, on my books, I've been keeping it as a $500,000 asset, but it's actually only a $300,000 asset. And if that ripples throughout the bank's holdings, they're in a lot of trouble. They're still bankrupt. That's what Tim Geithner or Ben Bernanke don't tell you. Okay? The reality is they're insolvent. If all of you didn't pay your just the ones that are underwater. If you're not underwater, of course keep making your mortgage payments. And listen, consult a lawyer because of course it matters and differs case by case, and of course it has a downside, your credit rating, et cetera, et cetera. But on the other hand, as Radigan says, don't be a sucker. Don't keep paying those payments on something that isn't worth that much. It's only going to the banker's bonuses. You know, if it makes sense for you on an individual basis after you've consulted and gotten advice for your particular case, don't be afraid to walk away. You have absolutely no moral obligation, and they would walk away from you in a heartbeat. And you might actually be helping the country because if you walk away from those mortgages and then we realize the banks are insolvent, it leads to a solution quicker because that's going to blow one day anyway. The only reason that that whole contraption still exists is because Ben Bernanke at the Fed told the banks, oh, no, that's all right, you don't have to mark to market. That means you don't have to actually put the real value of the assets on your books. You could just make up a number. I'm not kidding. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what they said. No, we trust you. Just make up a number on what you think your assets are worth. But if people walk away from these underwater mortgages, and by the way, that's 25% of the houses in the country are underwater. They walk away from those, then we realize, oh my God, these banks are actually worthless. Now, why is that important? Because every day that we pretend that they're still profitable is a day that those bankers are taking salaries and bonuses home that we're never going to get back. And those salaries and bonuses are mythical. They're figments of their imagination. They're only because of accounting tricks. And every dollar that they take home is a dollar that should remain in the banks so that we can actually fix the financial system. So, look, if you don't believe me, check out the actual article. Like I said, twitter.com/theyoungturks. We put it up there. And check out the links. Check out the evidence for yourself. And it doesn't matter if you're a liberal or conservative or anything else. Look at the facts and see what the reality of the matter is. All right. Now, let me give you one more piece of bad news before I get to the good news. And that's, well, you know what? Two pieces of good news, actually. So Tim Johnson, this is the bad news, is a Democrat from South Dakota. He's part of this conference. And let me give you an exact quote here. Is this, I believe this is Huffington Post. Yeah. The amendment offered by Senator Tim Johnson undercuts a move to compel brokers, middlemen between buyers and sellers of securities, to act in the best interest of their clients in accordance with what is known as their fiduciary duty. Okay, now, that sounds a little complicated, but did you hear the core of it? They're removing a thing that compels you, a part of the law that compels you to act in your client's best interest. Why would you remove that? That's crazy, right? And you can't find an expert in the country who thinks that's a good idea. Oh, no, you should let brokers act in their own best interest, but not their client's best interest. Nobody thinks that, right? Oh, wait, I can find you a couple people who think that. The top banks, right? Of course. So now Tim Johnson has entered that into the bill. The banks own the place. If we took a poll, we'd win overwhelmingly on all of these issues if you explain it to people. Overwhelmingly. It doesn't make any sense to be against them. But so why are the senators voting against the overwhelming majority of the people? Because they get paid by those guys. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. So now, given that, it's shocking that anybody's doing the right thing. Now, oh, by the way, on Tim Johnson, don't worry. When Chris Dodd steps aside, because he's retiring at the end of this term, the guy who will be in charge of the banking committee in the Senate, the most important guy when it comes to finance in all of Congress, will be Tim Johnson. Disaster on top of disaster. Okay, so now the good news, some House Democrats are fighting back, okay? And they're saying, no. The original Senate version was some of the tougher language, whether it's the Franken Amendment, whether it's the Derivatives Amendment, et cetera, et cetera. That's the one we should stick with. And we're here from the House to tell you that our House leadership is not representing us. Okay, we want it to be tougher. We want it to be stronger. You know who's on that bandwagon, the guys who started it, or the people who started it? Rosa DeLauro, Jackie Speier, and Bart Stupak of the infamous Stupak Amendment. But look, I'm telling you, I told you that at the time. Bart Stupak's pro-life. Pro-life doesn't mean bad guy. He just disagrees with us, and that's normal. And I know how much that drove people crazy for understandable reasons and for ideological reasons. But as long as he's not a sellout and he's actually acting based on his real ideology, I don't have any problem, okay? So we lost on that one because he was on the other side. Well, then it got mediated, actually. But on this one, he's with us. So I give him all the credit in the world. And they actually rallied 50 House members to sign that letter saying, no, we want the tougher version of the bill. So what I'm amazed by, given the broken system, is that we even have a fight. And we do. We're battling right now as we speak, today and tomorrow, and then probably right after that we'll know. We'll know what's in the final version. So, and here's my bottom line on it. If they come out and they say that Derivatives Amendment, as it is, not the watered-down version that Barney Frank wants to do, survives, and it's in the final bill, it's a half a loaf, and I'll take it. Okay? Now, it's, the rest of the stuff that they gutted is comical, it's ridiculous, yada, yada, yada. You know all that stuff, right? But the reason the Derivatives Amendment is so important is because then they can't gamble with our money. The derivatives is gambling. Now, right now, they're using our deposits as their down payment on the gambling. They're saying, all right, look, I got Joe and Bob and Susie's deposits here, and I'd like to put it down as 10% or 1% of my bet and make this enormous bet on it so that I could profit from it, right? And then the government backs that up through FDIC and other things. What the Derivatives Amendment would do is they would split it. They want to say, hey, you want to do your derivatives bet? Have at it, Hoss, but you can't use your depositor money. You can't use taxpayer-backed money. You have to use your own money. Well, if that's really true, I got no problems with that. If they only bankrupted themselves, I got no problems with that, right? As long as they can't use our money for it. So that's why it's critical. That's why if it's in the bill, I'll say, all right, look, let's take that. And who knows, cross your fingers, that might be enough to begin a real reform process, and we might not even crash. Okay, after all this, right? So prepare to get disappointed tomorrow. Okay, you know it, I know it. But I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful. It's still in there, which is amazing. Okay, so, oh, by the way, which side does the Obama White House come out on that? Anybody want to take a guess? Change. Yeah, of course. They're fighting against the Derivatives Amendment. They say, no, let them keep gambling with our money. It's a brilliant idea. All right, you know what? One last thing on finance, and then we'll move on to the other important issues. Unrelated to all of this, a new report came out saying how many millionaires are there in the world? Has it increased or decreased lately? What's the status of the richest people in the world? Well, we just had a massive recession, so they must have been really hurt by it. The number of millionaires in the world climbed by 17% last year. Bank of America Corporation Wealth Management Chief Sally Krawcheck says, we're already seeing distinct signs of recovery and in some areas a complete return to 2000 levels of wealth and growth. Oh, no, not for you. No, you lost 8 million jobs and the average income is down, et cetera, et cetera. But the richest people in the world are back to having a grand old time. So how many millionaires are there, by the way, in the world? Turns out 10 million. 10 million millionaires. And their collective wealth this past year surged 19%. Their numbers grew by 17%. Their overall wealth grew by 19%. Now they own $39 trillion worth of assets. So they're doing fantastic. It's okay. I'm sure that'll trickle down to you anytime soon. It's coming right around the corner. Oh, it hasn't gotten to you yet? Just be patient, okay? This is what I'm talking about. Now, all those guys aren't bad guys. I know a lot of those guys, okay? I went to good schools. They all, not all, but a lot of wound up becoming in that 10 million, okay? But should they be taking our money and then saying everything's fine for them as we're getting killed out here? Hell no. Hell no. And that's what's being allowed right now as we speak. That's what drives me crazy. I'm going to come back to that issue in the postgame, okay? Because I want to tell you about the millionaires I know and what the lessons we can learn from that. But we got to save that for the postgame. Come right back. Amazing facts on drilling and McChrystal, Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. By the way, we still have my favorite story of the day. That's coming up in the next segment. It's about a Republican who thinks Democrats are parasites. Oh, that's a great one. Oh, I love that one. All right, everybody calm down. We'll get to that in a second. All right, now let's talk about the oil spill. First of all, disaster for Obama in polling. It's hit him pretty hard. He's still hanging in there. I'm surprised it's still this high, to be honest with you. His popularity rating stands at 45%. 48% say they disapprove of Obama's job performance. So, more disapprove than approve. But 45% for all the things that have gone wrong and all the, the criticism he's got over BP, et cetera. I'm surprised it's still that high. For all my criticism of him, I'm still I'm rooting for him. I did that Braveheart analogy the other day. And then somebody wrote, and I don't remember, it was an email, tweet, whatever it was, right? Saying, you missed the real analogy. You know who Obama is? He's Robert the Bruce. He is. He's the guy that could lead us to victory. And we still kind of have faith that he has it in him, and that maybe one day he will. But he's just sitting around listening to the nobles and getting advice from people telling him, no, don't fight. No, change is not possible. And he's going in that direction. But one day, I still kind of have the hope that he will. Color me naive. All right, anyway, so I'm rooting for him, but he's at 45% now. And then 60% of, this is the good part, 60% of respondents said they favor more offshore drilling off the coast of the U.S. in May, right? But that number has now dropped to 53%. It's a little bit of a drop, but that's good. It's going in the right direction. But here's the killer stat. Nearly 2/3 of respondents said they wanted more regulation of oil companies. Thank you. See, people get it, man. It's nearly 2/3. That's a giant number, okay? Saying, yeah, of course we need to regulate the oil companies more. That's your opportunity right there. Now, if you cared to regulate them more, if you wanted that change, this is the time. This is when Obama should seize that moment and say, here's how we're going to do things. Now, to his credit, he took that moratorium, which initially was a joke, where it was a month and there were no new drilling projects coming up in that month, and he expanded it to 6 months and it became real. And now, since it's real, now he's getting pushback on it from Republicans and a federal judge. Judge Martin Feldman ruled that Obama's drilling moratorium could not stand, and that it was, in his words, heavy-handed and rather overbearing. It has had, quote, an immeasurable effect on the industry, the local economy, and the U.S. energy supply, and that it is capricious, and that he's going to lift it immediately. First he said he was going to lift it. Today the news is when they asked him, hey, can you hold your decision until we appeal it? He said, no, you can start drilling right away, right now, and the appeal can overturn it, but in the meanwhile you can keep on drilling without having made sure that we've taken new safety precautions. Thank you, Judge Martin Feldman. So when you look into Judge Feldman's situation, well, I'm sure he's not biased by anything, and this is his honest opinion on this. Well, you look at that. It turns out Judge Feldman is invested in 8 different petroleum companies or funds that invest in them. But I'm sure he doesn't have any stock or any financial interest in any companies that are related to this spill, right? Except Transocean, Halliburton, and 2 of BP's largest U.S. private shareholders, BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase. So it's almost impossible for Judge Feldman to be more invested in this decision financially, his own assets on the line. I mean, you can't get any more invested than Feldman is. Did he recuse himself from the case? Say, well, look, obviously my money's tied up in this. Not only this particular spill, but he's also got money in companies that might do further drilling, right? So conflict of interest, just the giant red flags. Here it is, conflict of interest. And Feldman's like, I don't give a rat's ass. Conflict of interest, my ass. Keep drilling, man. I need to make money. I mean, did I say me? Oh, I mean, this has affected the energy supply of the country too much. It's a damn shame, and I'm just trying to look out for the country. By the way, he said it. All the Republicans are saying it. I really need you to be clear on this. This doesn't have anything to do with our energy supply. I don't know if you know this. BP is a company that used to be called British Petroleum. It's a British company. It's not an American company. So, well, wait a minute. That's our oil from the Gulf of Mexico. It ain't our oil. Once they take it out, it's their oil. And you know where they can sell it? Well, of course, they can only sell it in the U.S. No? Oh, who knew? They can sell it in China. They can sell it in the Middle East. They can sell it in Europe. They can sell it anywhere they like. It's not our oil. We're giving them the oil. Now, we get certain royalties, et cetera, from it. But this whole idea, like another stat was like, this is 31% of the oil reserves in the United States. There are no, what do you mean oil reserves? It's not our oil. It's the multinational corporation's oil. Everybody gets this wrong. I wrote about this 2 years ago. And then I was thinking, am I the one that took the crazy pill? I mean, this is how it works, right? They get the oil and they can sell it to anyone they like. They don't have to sell it in the U.S. So it doesn't go to some vault that's United States oil. No. And Rachel Maddow did another great piece on television the other day about it. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. We're right. They're wrong. So that's what drives me crazy about the media. I mean, they just all repeat it like, oh, well, it's very important for domestic production, and that would be and we could be energy independent, and we won't need any of that Middle East oil if BP keeps taking the oil in from the Gulf of Mexico and selling it anywhere they like. That doesn't make any sense. And this judge is making decisions based on it, and the media reports it like it's true when it's not even remotely true. So, now they got to appeal it, and we'll see how long that appeals process takes. Meanwhile, they're going to start doing more drilling. And Feldman's like, what? What leads you to believe that things aren't safe anymore? He's like, look, if a plane crashes, does that mean we stop all the planes? If a car crashes, does that mean we stop everybody from driving? No, you schmuck. It looks like if you drill beyond 500 feet, that a lot of the companies, because of the evidence that we have gathered, are not taking the proper precautions. So let's figure out, before we do more drilling, what the proper precautions are. Then we can start drilling again if you're so obsessed with drilling and making money off of it. Okay? This isn't about stopping it. It's just about making sure you have the right safety regulations, which 2/3 of Americans agree with. Here it is again. Look at this AP article. Gulf drilling accounts for 31% of total domestic oil production and 11% of domestic natural gas production. And they don't tell you where the oil is going. They're just saying that's what's being produced in the country. It's not coming to us. All right, the minute, by the way, that BP says, hey, you know what, Cenk and you out there, Amir and Bobby and, you know, whoever else, right? Amir was an interesting name. Okay, and Jesus and Anna, I got oil from the Gulf of Mexico. That's American oil. Congratulations. Go put it in your car. Okay, when that happens, then I'll say, okay, it's domestic production. That's not how it works. Okay, now, so the Republicans should be pretty embarrassed by this, right? I mean, God, Joe Barton got caught apologizing to BP. Looks like they got their hand in the cookie jar. So they've probably backed away from BP, right? Can you see where this is going? Okay, of course not. They are now busy attending fundraising events held by BP. So let me tell you about one of them. On Thursday, Dan Meyer, a lobbyist for BP, is co-sponsoring a luncheon at the Hotel George in Washington, D.C. Colorado Republican congressional candidate Cory Gardner is attending. And Meyer, of course, oh, by the way, also attending Marsha Blackburn, Republican of Tennessee, Eric Paulson, Republican of Minnesota. They're all going. And this Meyer guy, who now works as a lobbyist for BP, who did he used to work for before? Oh, look at that. Chief of Staff for Newt Gingrich, Chief Congressional Liaison for the Bush White House. You see how this works? Revolving door. You go do favors for the oil industry while you work for Bush and Gingrich. You come out, they do you a favor by giving you a giant amount of money, and then you take some of that money and you funnel it to the new politicians, and around it goes, and then you wonder why they don't do safety precautions. Because they all get paid a lot of money not to do safety precautions. All right, now, but okay, Joe Barton is at least toxic. I mean, nobody wants any part of Joe Barton, except apparently Representative Cliff Stearns, Republican of Florida, who's doing a June 30th lunch fundraiser with, quote, special guest Congressman Joe Barton. They have learned nothing. All right, now let's go to Mike Lee. He just won the primary for the Republicans to enter the Senate race in Utah, and Utah being enormously Republican. He will probably be the next senator from Utah. When they asked him, hey, do you think BP should be on the hook for paying all this? He said, no. I said, he said, you have a set of settled expectations that you give to a business when it decides to make an investment in this. Our country benefits from this type of activity. Really? How? Okay. No, he says, no, so you shouldn't raise the $75 million cap they have in Congress. $20 billion fund that Obama got. Mike Lee wants it to come back down to $75 million. And so the reporter does a good job. He follows up and asks them, hey, so if they don't pay it, doesn't that mean that the American taxpayer is on the hook for it? Here's Lee's direct quote. Well, yeah, it probably does. Sad day for you. Okay? And it is not out of context. He goes on and explaining, hey, look, you know what? We got to encourage oil production, and it's so important for these companies to make a ton of money. I mean, for us to have domestic oil production that's not really domestic at all and doesn't stay here, but I'm not going to tell you that. So why does Mike Lee not know that I mean, maybe he's stupid. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't realize that the oil doesn't just get handed to American citizens, right? Or maybe he realized that and he thinks, look, yeah, it was Tea Party, la, 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 la. I'm now the Republican candidate. How does a Republican candidate win? He gets money from the oil and gas industry. That's how he wins. So everybody's good buddies now. Hey, Tea Party guys, how long did it take for them to get corrupted? How long? He got elected yesterday, right? By the way, he said those comments before the primary election, to be fair. So he was already corrupt. But, you know, the thing is, it's just one last thing on that. You know, is Mike Lee corrupt? No, I think the ideology has seeped in so much that Rush Limbaugh has done such an amazing job in Fox News Channel that these Tea Party guys and the Republicans all across the country, they really think it's their job, that it's their ideology to protect these multinational corporations. So I don't think Mike Lee thinks necessarily, and I don't know him, so that, oh my God, I'm going to get paid. A lot of the senators and congressmen do because they already know how the system works, right? I think he thinks, oh yeah, no, it's our job to make sure the business profits as much as possible. Any business, it doesn't matter. And if that means we deregulate them so that they take risks with our money, if they're the bankers, or they take risks with our environment, if they're the oil companies, that's okay, it's okay. Rush Limbaugh told me. Fox News told me that they need to make profits like that. And as Tucker Carlson said, they need to be full of joy with their risks. Luckily, it hasn't seeped all the way down to all the voters. They asked Texans, and only 18% of them thought that Joe Barton said the right thing by apologizing to BP. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, 18% of Texans, not just Republicans, but a majority of Republicans also said he said the wrong thing. Hey, tiny bit of progress. And that's why every single Republican in the country is backpedaling. You know how they normally don't backpedal, they normally don't apologize. They saw the poll and they're like, whoa, oh my God, only 18% of Texans think we're right. We must be in disastrous shape. Okay, backpedal. Oh yeah, I hate Joe Barton. I don't know what you're talking about. Joe Barton, what are you talking about? He's not the issue. He's not the issue. Lisa Murkowski, did we show that in the post game? I think we might have. Yeah. We showed a clip of her just like, please stop asking about Joe Barton. I think I'm going to save it for the post game too. Scarborough does a good job of trying to, grill Eric Cantor on this. Cantor with the same thing. Oh, Joe Barton, never heard of the guy. I hate that guy. Who's Joe Barton? Okay. Now, let's move on to other issues. I got to go on to McChrystal. Let me give you a couple of fun ones, and then we'll take the break. So, first, Gretchen Carlson. She's got something interesting to say about the McChrystal situation. It's a little tangential, but it's amusing. Let's go to clip number 1.
To me, this is what being president of the United States is all about. It's these tough, huge, monumental decisions. It's not about how you run a campaign. It's not about whether or not you're popular. It's not about whether or not you're a celebrity or you're good looking or tall or short. It's in a time of crisis, making these executive decisions. It's just like our job. I mean, from a day-to-day basis, a lot of times when there's not big breaking news, we just sort of roll along. But what's the role of an anchor during huge breaking news? You remember growing up? You tuned to the television, and that one moment during the year, they would have to carry a story all along. It's the same thing as being the president of the United States.
Wait. How is it the same thing? You don't have to make any decisions. You were talking about how he had to make massive decisions in important times. What decisions does the anchor make? Do I read the prompter from this camera or this camera? It's a monumental decision. I'm on the air all day long. I got to make those tough calls. No, but in her crazy little mind, she thinks like that anchors are really important, and that in times of crisis, the American people look to Gretchen Carlson. Gretchen, what should we do? And she is under the illusion, apparently, that she writes her own scripts. Your producers write the script and they put it in the teleprompter and you read it. Where's the decision making, right? And you can tell her sense of like how important she thinks it is when she doesn't read from the script all day, right? Like on those momentous days, we turn to the news anchors, and the news anchors don't even have the script sometimes, and they've got to make decisions about what to say, words that come out of their mouth without a prompter on those important days. Isn't that amazing? It's just like the president. Their sense of self-importance that's what's amazing. Okay, Gretchen, you're not the president. You're not even remotely close. And to be fair to her, sometimes on Fox and Friends, it's more informal, so they don't just read off a script. The news they do, but then they have discussions. And that's usually where they get themselves in trouble. Okay, that's probably why Gretchen thinks it's so damn hard. All right, quick break here. Let's come back with my favorite story of the day about the parasite, Republican or Democrat, we'll find out. And then, McChrystal and the implications for the media. That's fantastic. Come right back. Back on the Young Turks. So now, how has the media reacted to the McChrystal story? That's very interesting. We're going to start with Fox News. Their reaction is pretty predictable. Of course, you blame the media. It's not General McChrystal's fault for saying all that stuff. It's the media's fault for reporting it, obviously. Let's go to clip number 2.
The article's a little deceptive. It makes it seem at first glance that General McChrystal's the one who rips Joe Biden, the President of the United States, General Jones, General Eikenberry, who's functioning now as an ambassador. But upon further review, if you look real close, the only person he directly rips is Ambassador Holbrooke, who basically is on the way out anyway. So you say to yourself, the general didn't come out and say, I was taken out of context by a left-wing magazine who duped me. He doesn't say that.
Right.
He said, bad judgment, it's not indicative of my career, made a huge mistake, I apologize, but does not say the sentiments are inaccurate, which makes me wonder, does that give him the out? It's
Right.
not General MacArthur saying, oh, you know what, let's go invade China instead of just trying to take North Korea.
Well, McChrystal did do one stupid thing, and that was allow Rolling Stone, this freelance writer, into his camp for a while, and because of the volcanic ash spewing out of Iceland, they wound up sticking together for a lot longer, and the guy saw...
So blame the volcano.
The guy got to see McChrystal's posse all liquored up, and they said a lot of stuff.
For this president, it would mean talking about the war for a change. He never talks about the war. He never talks about the urgency. He never talks about the men and women in the field, even though I'm sure he has sentiment for it. I'm sure he gets up worrying about it because ultimately they're his responsibility. But when he's deciding about the war for 3 months, he's going to Dover Air Force Base, finding the caskets, walking Arlington, staring into the wind. Then he's sitting there and contemplating about the war. But right now, those men and women have to feel ignored. If it wasn't for General McChrystal ill-advisedly talking to this left-wing anti-war magazine, we would not be discussing this.
As usual, unbelievable. First of all, Obama talks about the war all the time. He just gave a major speech at West Point about it. Inconvenient facts. You just ignore those, right? Number 2, of course it's not McChrystal's fault. Come on, they were just, you know, he's a good guy, and they just got drunk a little bit because of the volcano. They were hanging around with a reporter, that anti-war left-wing magazine who duped the poor general. The general was the head of PR for us when we first invaded Iraq. He's the one that said, yeah, we really did accomplish the mission after Bush hung the manor. And he said, combat operations are over. He's the one that backed up Rumsfeld when Rumsfeld said, look, stuff happens, okay, when the insurgency first began and there was madness in Iraq. So the head of PR for us originally in the military, he doesn't know how PR works. He doesn't know that a reporter actually reports. No, of course, no, it's not his fault. It's left-wing, anti-military, goddamn Rolling Stone. They're so deceptive. They're deceptive. They actually write down the things we said, and then they report it. It's not what our understanding of the press was. But there it is. That's the important part. And Jon Stewart talked about this the other day. Jason Linkins talks about it on Huffington Post today. That the press is actually not used to reporting. So they are surprised by this. So they're like, wait a minute, this breaks protocol. We're not supposed to actually tell the American people what they're up to. We're supposed to cover for them for access. So Rolling Stone, you leftists, what's the matter with you reporting the actual facts? No, tut. And there's a perfect quote from Politico on it. Here's what Politico said, and they're an excellent example of the Washington establishment press. They said, McChrystal, an expert on counterterrorism and counterinsurgency, has long thought to be uniquely qualified to lead in Afghanistan. So the first sentence is, of this paragraph is, McChrystal is the guy. He's the man. He's awesome, right? Now let's continue. They say, but he's not known for being media savvy. Just like Fox News Channel, the poor guy got duped. He didn't know some reporters can actually do their jobs. My ass, he's not media savvy. That was his job before, let alone covering for the Tillman debacle when he falsified that report, let alone covering his own ass when there was the allegations of abuse in 2006 in a camp that he ran in Iraq. He's not media savvy, let alone how he threw Obama under the bus the first time around when he conveniently leaked that he needed more troops. And if Obama was a real man, he'd give it to him, right? He's not media savvy. These reporters think their job is to prop up the people in power. But I haven't gotten to the worst part. Hastings, the reporter, who has covered the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for 2 years, according to the magazine, is not well known within the Defense Department. And as a freelance reporter, Hastings would be considered a bigger risk to be given unfettered access, compared with a beat reporter who would not risk burning bridges by publishing many of McChrystal's remarks. There it is. That's the American media now. If you actually have facts and you actually do some real reporting and you uncover what their real motivations are, the people in power, do not report it. You don't want to burn your bridges. You need access. It's all about the access. So if you're a professional beat reporter who's been covering this a long time for Politico or other organizations, you know how to cover their ass, the people in power. You don't challenge them. You cover for them. It's pathetic. Our establishment media has totally forgotten what journalism is. They've totally forgotten how to do reporting. So when faced with real reporting from Rolling Stone, they're flummoxed by it. And they hate it. Politico attacked this piece on the first day that it came out. How dare Rolling Stone actually break a story? Remember, no, if they do things that are damaging, you cover up for them. These guys are rookies. They don't understand how the system works. I mean, I'm just relieved that somebody in the country actually did journalism. And when they asked Hastings, hey, you burned your bridges on this, how do you feel about it? He's like, I got a good story and I reported it. What do I need the bridges for? I mean, exactly right. Don't trust the establishment media, man. They're not, you can see it right there. They're not telling you the truth, and they're doing it on purpose so they can get access, so they can say, oh, I'm a big-time Washington reporter. I have access to all the people in power. I never say one bad word about them. I always write glowing praise, as I did earlier in the paragraph. Pathetic. You see why I get angry at them? Now, perfect example is New York Times. Okay, it's not a perfect example, but it's pretty close. On this issue, they have the inside scoop on deliberations inside the White House. This isn't about McChrystal or covering for him. It's about Obama. This is written by Mark Landler. It's a terrible article. It's given by leaks from the Obama White House. So it paints a picture of Obama who is resolute and open-minded and considering everything. And he talked to all of his advisors, but at the end he made a strong decision. I mean, to the point where the guy leaking it to him from inside the White House said to the reporter, once Obama had read the first couple of paragraphs, and that's where McChrystal had criticized our allies. He had read enough. So why did they leak that to him, right? I mean, if I'm the reporter, I'm like, ding, 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 because they don't want it to appear as if, no, he's not upset at the stuff that McChrystal said about Obama or Biden or anyone else. It's just that he jeopardized our relationship with the allies. And that's why he had read enough. Are you kidding me, Mike Landler? You tell me the president didn't read the full article? That he just read the first couple of paragraphs? All right, that's good enough here. If he did, then you should be reporting what a jackass he is. He made this decision without reading the whole article? If you read this piece of garbage, I mean, and look, I voted for Obama, okay? I don't like the Republicans, but this is garbage. This is just saying, all right, how can I be your stenographer today? But they do better than being stenographers. They paint them in this heroic light. I mean, you should read the article. You know what? I'll tweet it out to you, okay? And Obama, as if like he stood there like a statue and made a really strong decision. He was awesome after he listened to everybody and got brilliant advice. Okay. By the way, another story. I got to get to my favorite one, but on McChrystal, they claim he's a liberal. They claim he banned Fox News from the headquarters because he's such a liberal. It's a funny way of showing it, right? The torture in Iraq, the Pat Tillman report, the escalation of the wars, throwing every Democrat in the country under the bus. There's something weird going on. I'll talk more about this in the post-game, too. All right, now, I'm going to go a little over time here to do my favorite story. So, we've got a farmer out in Missouri, David Youngerman, and he's really mad at the Democrats. He thinks they're damn parasites is what they are. And he's decided that he's going to put it on a 45-foot-long semi-truck box on his trailer. And he's literally going to write that the Democrats, he says, here's the quote, "Are you a producer or a parasite Democrats? Party of the parasites." Yeah, way to point it out, Dave. You go get 'em, man. Those sons of bitches taking like welfare and food stamps like they're hungry. Unemployment checks like that we had a recession or something. Goddamn parasites. Come to find out, it turns out, guess who, lo and behold, takes money from the federal government? You guessed it, David Jungerman. You know how much he took? $1 million in farm subsidies. So, hey, look, if you're taking 10 or 20 bucks or a couple $100 because you're unemployed or you're poor or you're hungry, you're a parasite. But if I'm rich and I take $1 million, well, I'm a good tax-paying American. And that's what he says. He says, look, that's just my money coming back to me. I pay a lot in taxes. I'm not a parasite. Well, if you gave me $1 million, if the government gave me $1 million, I could pay a lot in taxes too. Okay. He says, and this is great too. He says, look, I'm not saying all the Democrats locally are parasites. The national ones definitely are. Locally, there are some Harry Truman Democrats still around here. Harry Truman ran his campaign based on single-payer health care. He also vetoed tax cuts, and he is far more progressive than any Democrat in the country right now. He'd make Alan Grayson look like a conservative. Okay, Truman Democrats. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, Jungerman. As usual. It just answer the question. Who's the parasite? Who's the parasite? You took $1 million off of us. So unless you want to give that $1 million back right now, take that goddamn sign off, you goddamn parasite. Young Turks.